right now. I'm going to make sure the overheads don't feed back.
And good morning.
Oh.
Well, sounds like a big welcoming song. Well, here we're on Johnny's Family Show, and I'm excited to be able to sit in the same office right now because of the fact I know a little bit about the history of this, but we're going to find out exactly the history of this building as we said, and try to kind of put things together and what's happening in the community. We're talking to this great lady here, Faye Bedinger. Faye, I must tell you, welcome home.
Thank you. I spent some time out here running this station at one time, and then my son-in-law Ben Baird came down, and after he graduated from college, and he ran it until we sold it. And I have a lady here with me that is Charlene Little. Her husband worked for
he was with the FAA.
With the FAA, and he built the tower, and he put in all the engineering parts, and he stayed with us and did the engineering as long as we had the station, and it was KBIL then. My husband and Bill Martin were the two people that were instrumental. Bill Martin lived in Colorado Springs, and he was in the Army. And he came to George to tell him that this station, this frequency of 1140 on the dial, and we called it KBIL, was available for a radio station. So George got some friends, Claude Parrish, Bob Sevier, Bud Brandt, and I can't remember, I think Mr. Tyson too, that had the Tyson Ford. I believe he was one of the original owners. And eventually, after we ran it for a long time, George bought out the other people except Bill Martin, and I think Bill was a lieutenant or a colonel or something in the Army. But Bill stayed with us as long as we owned the station, and when we sold it to a gentleman that was in Wichita, he was a good friend of Jimmy Dean's, and he also had a radio station up in Iowa somewhere, and I don't remember what the station was, but they were tremendous people and had been in radio for a long, long time, and they wanted to buy the station out, so we sold it. And then I think after this gentleman passed away or something, they sold it to somebody else, and they put it in the ground, and it was closed, I guess, until Bill Chartel opened it here.
That's actually Pete.
Pete Chartel bought it here, and I wanted to bring with me Charlene Little, and I have her. Her husband was Ted Little, who put the engineering, the tower, and the guy wires, and the location, and all that out there, and it's still there. And at that time, we called it KBIL. So that is a part of the history. Maybe Charlene would like to have something to say. She had two boys, and I think that they were young then, and probably starting high school or somewhere thereabouts, and they came out and helped their dad some too. Charlene, will you speak?
Well, I don't know much to speak about. We had a very good time as a family building KBIL. It was a fun organization. We built the building, and they set up the tower, and we learned to install all the tubes that went in along with the transistors and resistors. It was back in the time of tubes, which today does not show the same thing. But we learned to keep our hands to ourselves, accept what we were doing. We learned to pull and shove and push and carry on, and finally got the building in readiness, got the transmitter in readiness, and we didn't know what we were going to do with our time afterwards. Certainly enjoyed our time here.
Well, obviously, the place looks like a house. Was that on purpose?
Yes, it was.
I mean, who designed the building? Did you do it, or did you, Miss Bedinger?
I didn't have anything to do with it. I don't know who designed the building. I don't know who actually built the building. Do you know,
It
Charlie?
was contractors that built it.
Yeah, but I don't know.
And
who
I
the
don't know who it
contractors
was. But it was a little house, and they always said if this didn't work, we'd just end up sleeping out here. Well, I haven't slept a night here, and it did work.
Well, it's still working.
Yes.
But I'll let you ladies know that no matter what goes on, this is still your home. You're always welcome. You're always welcome here. Miss Bedinger, I know that.
Oh, really?
I've seen you around the community so many times. You
want to go on and say hi?
Sometimes the newspaper writers call it an activist, and you can continue to be involved in the community, whether it be on the square, or whether it be on Mill Street, or whether it be at one of your favorite restaurants, the Trails Inn.
Hang on a minute.
That's right.
KCXL.
And I see your name in the paper, and I see you at the Board of Education building. Make sure everything is trying to be run right up there. So you can totally involved. This is your home, your community.
That's right, Bill. This is my home. I've been here since 1945 in October. I came after I was discharged from the waves from teaching bombing with the Northern Bomb Site. George's home was in Liberty, and we came back here to be close to his family because he was an only child.
We got a call that said that the designer of the building was Harry Singer.
That's right.
Right.
Harry Singer did build the building.
And I've got Johnny. She wants to chime in and say some things to you.
Johnny, just talk.
Well, I just have been listening and amazed that, back then, women, I thought, were only staying home and cooking and cleaning, and here we have some pioneer women that were building radio stations, and now we've got a new generation of women involved in radio, and when I hear you talk about radio, I just think it's so neat that you were able to be so involved in building a station. Did other women back then say, oh my gosh, look what they're doing?
Well, we did a lot of things. I worked at the furniture store. We opened George Bedinger Furniture the 3rd of August, 1946. And then we were involved in Franklin Street Investment Company, Clayco State Bank, a number of things that George was interested in, and the radio station was probably the one thing that I was involved in the most, because sometime when somebody quit, I came out here. Bob Haltz was a DO, was a chiropractor, and he sold ads for us. We had Jim Willman, who is Jim Moore, that's with the radio stations over town. We had Dick Waite, who sometimes couldn't get here because sometime he'd hitch a ride and he'd walk over and he'd be a little late. So some of the DJs would have to stay a little overtime so that we would stay on the air. But I'll tell you, it was one experience running this radio station. I found out DJs are like no other people I ever knew.
And, well, you know what? I can agree with you, being involved with radio, that radio stations, it's like a whole nother world, and you get involved with it, and you either love it or you hate it, but it's really neat that you were able to be so involved, with what your husband was doing and to help him, It sounds like you supported him and helped him the whole way.
I did. I worked at the furniture store for a long time, and then when I had to come out here, I did, and then I went back after Ben came to manage the station, and I worked and was involved in the furniture store and George Bedinger Furniture. It's the Liberty House. It's now the Ethan Allen store. My son Mike and his wife Kathy own that, and they run that, and they do a fantastic job with the Ethan Allen store. And we opened in 1987 the Georgetown Furniture, and I stayed involved for a number of years, and George stayed down there until he died. We had sold it to my daughter Sue Baird and Ben, And they finally, Ben is a minister, a missions pastor for the Rock Church of KC, and Sue decided she'd like to have more time to travel when they go on the mission trips. They were in Israel in March, and now they're working at